she said. Call me Aunty. I called her at midnight. She was just my mom's friend, until she closed the door. I don't remember the first time my mother introduced her. Maybe I was too young then, distracted by something else. But I remember the first time I noticed her, really noticed her. It was last summer, late evening, when she dropped by our house with a bowl of mangoes. My mother was fussing over something in the kitchen, but my eyes kept drifting to the way she placed the bowl on the table, as if it mattered to her that even fruit should look presentable. She laughed at something my mother said, a low, careful laugh, and for no reason. It stuck with me. She was just my mother's friend, at least, that's what I told myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was 22 and had no right to think about her. She was in her mid-40s, confident in a way that made everyone else in the room adjust themselves. But when she looked at me, just for a second, when my mother wasn't paying attention, something tightened in my chest. I told myself I imagined it. Still, at midnight, I found myself scrolling through my phone, staring at her number. She had given it casually a week earlier, when my mom had asked me to pick something up for her from the market. Beta, if you can't find it, just call me. That was all she had said, Beta. And then later, half teasing, when I said thank you. Too politely airy, call me Aunty. Otherwise I'll feel old. I didn't call her Aunty, not once. The word wouldn't leave my throat. The phone felt heavy in my hand that night. I don't know why I pressed call. Maybe I wanted to hear that careful laugh again. Maybe. I just wanted proof that I wasn't the only one awake, restless, thinking. She answered on the third ring. Her voice lower, softer than usual. Hello. I froze. My heart pounded in my ears. It's me, I said finally, hating how boyish I sounded. A pause, then a small sigh. Not irritated, but something else. It's midnight, she said. I know. I whispered. The silence that followed was heavy. I almost hung up. But then I heard the faint rustle of fabric, like she had sat up in bed. Why are you calling? She asked. Her tone wasn't angry. It was curious. Careful. I don't know, I admitted. I just couldn't sleep. Another pause. Then she laughed. Not loud, not teasing. Just a short, quiet breath of sound that made my skin prickle. You're too young for this, she said finally, almost to herself. I don't remember how long we stayed on the phone. 5 minutes. 10. She asked me about my studies, my plans. I asked her if she ever stayed up this late. She said sometimes, when the house felt too empty. At one point, I thought I heard her say my name differently, softer, slower. But maybe I imagined that too, when we hung up. I thought that was the end of it. Just a strange, late-night mistake. But the next evening, when I dropped by her house, with something my mother had asked me to deliver, she opened the door in a loose cotton coat. Her hair wasn't done, no makeup, just her, simple and startling. For a moment, she didn't move. Her eyes searched mine, as if last night's call hadn't faded from her mind either. Then, with the smallest of gestures, she stepped aside and closed the door behind me. The moment the door clicked shut, the room felt smaller. Not because of its size, but because of her. She didn't say anything at first. She just walked ahead into the living room, her bare feet making the faintest sound against the cool floor. I followed, unsure whether I was a guest or something else entirely. On the table sat an unfinished cup of tea, steamed long gone cold. She picked it up, looked at it, then put it back down as if she had forgotten why she brought it there in the first place. You shouldn't call me like that, she said finally, not looking at me. I know, I answered. Her eyes lifted. For a second, I thought I saw something flicker there, not anger, but something heavier. Maybe guilt, maybe caution. You're my friend, son, she reminded me, her voice steady. I swallowed. I didn't forget. She sank into the sofa, crossing her arms loosely, as though holding herself together. I sat down across from her, and for a long while, we just stayed like that. She kept her eyes on the floor, and I kept mine on her hands. They were elegant hands, slightly worn, with faint lines that told more stories than she ever would. I wondered what they had held, what they had let go of. Finally, she broke the silence. "You'll ruin yourself thinking like this." Her words were sharp, but her tone wasn't. It sounded almost like a warning to herself. I leaned forward, and have you never thought like this? Her lips parted slightly, then closed again. She looked away, her jaw tightening. I knew she had been married once. My mother had mentioned it in passing, something about him working abroad, then not coming back. She never gave details, and I never asked. But I noticed the way she avoided questions about her own life at family gatherings, the way she smiled at other people's happiness like she was clapping from the sidelines of a game. She no longer played. I wanted to ask her about it now, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "You seemed lonely last night." Her head turned sharply toward me. For a heartbeat, her eyes burned. Then the fire dimmed. She let out a breath. "Don't," she whispered. The word cut through me, softer than a plea, sharper than a command. We sat there in silence again, the air thick with everything unsaid. I wanted to reach for her hand, to prove that what I felt wasn't childish, that it wasn't just a phase. But my fingers curled into fists against my knees instead. Finally, she stood, smoothing the fabric of her kurta, as if to erase the moment. "You should go," she said, "before your mother wonders." I got up slowly, but I didn't move toward the door. My voice was low when I asked, "If I call again, will you answer?" She froze, her back to me. The silence stretched too long. Then, so faint I almost missed it, she said, "Go home." But when I stepped outside and turned back, I saw her watching from the window, her hand resting against the glass, as if she wasn't ready to let me leave.